There we go. Okay, we have attendees joining. Hello, everyone. Hello. This is the panel discussion on innovation in a time of crisis. Wow, already people have been in the waiting room. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Glad you can join us. Hello. Okay, so since it is 5:01, we're going to get started. Hello. Welcome to the panel discussion on innovation in a time of crisis. My name is Reina Saiki, and I will be moderating today. I think a lot of you already know me because I've been running a lot of the webinars this past week. But if in case this is your first time seeing me, my name is Reina again, and I'm from the US. I've been working with Sparkdojo for about 5 years now as a communication coach and trainer. It's very nice to meet you. And let me introduce the panelists that we have today. We have Frank Striegl, founder and CEO of 5 AM Ramen. Hi, Frank.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. We also have Sally Nomura, creative marketing coordinator at Netflix. Hi, Sally.
Hi.
Hi. And Christian Wolfer, organizational development manager at Injestar Incorporated. Hi, Christian.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, so maybe just so our attendees can get to know our panelists a little bit better, hopefully we can have a little bit of a conversation with each one of you to get more information about who you are. So maybe I'm just going to go around in the order that I see. So Frank.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for having me again, Reina.
No, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
You are the founder and CEO of 5 AM Ramen. Can you tell us what the company is about?
Certainly. So I'm obsessed with ramen. I eat anywhere from 300 to 350 bowls of ramen a year, although last year I think I did 400.
That's like nearly one a day, right?
Basically on average. Normally I'll do 3 in a day, take a break, 3 or 4. Yeah, I love food. Ramen is at the center of that. And my business up to now before this whole situation was primarily focused on Tokyo ramen tours. That being visiting to Japan, I would take them to ramen shops. We'd have smaller portions, things like that. And 5 AM Ramen, which you had mentioned, is a blog that I have. That's just my love letter to ramen, if you will, reviewing ramen shops around Tokyo and around Japan. So yeah, all things ramen, let's say.
Wow. Great. Thank you so much for giving us that introduction. So were you, prior to 5 AM Ramen, were you in the food industry? What kind of jobs did you have before that?
Completely unrelated to food or ramen. But no, just to give a brief, I suppose, background. I started out in finance, actually. I did that for a couple of years. I worked as a broker. Then Lehman hit. I shifted to doing sales at a tech company. And, my background is actually sales. I've done sales practically my whole life. And the only difference now is that I'm selling to ramen shops. Hey, would you like to be part of this tour? But immediately before the ramen tours and 5 AM Ramen setting this whole thing up, what I had done was worked at a company called Agoda. I don't know if some people out there are familiar with Agoda, but they're basically a booking platform, quite good hotel prices in Asia. And I worked there, and then maybe that kind of set me up to think more about the tourism industry and how I could perhaps set up ramen tours.
Great. Wow. Well, that is a pretty radical career change, though. Was there like a trigger or like a specific sort of incident, or what was the thinking behind starting 5 AM Ramen?
No, that's a great question. I think for me, I always wanted to do my own thing, and that took different forms in the past. And I think just with the up until now, of course, the massive growth in Japan, inbound tourism, people come into Japan. This is a huge bright spot in the Japanese economy. I thought, well, why don't I combine the two worlds? I love ramen. I can talk about ramen, introduce people to amazing ramen. And then on top of that, people are visiting. So it seemed to make sense also as a business, whereas maybe 5-10 years ago, it would not have made sense. Ramen tours would have been too specific. Even food tourism themselves are exploding. So that was kind of where my head was at when I started this.
Great. And I assume that, your service and your business is mainly offline based. So I look forward to hearing about, how the transition has been due to COVID-19, what the impact has been to your business and so on. One last question. Aside from ramen, do you have any other hobbies or interests?
Well, 90% ramen, 10%.
Wow.
No, joke. No, I think like a lot of people, I love to travel. Of course, that's not unfortunately possible right now, but travel, I like to read. I feel like reading and video games, now that we're all stuck at home, I've played a little bit more video games than I normally would. But yeah, maybe those are the big three, let's say. Travel.
Great, excellent. Okay, so the remaining 10% is travel, games, reading, and so on. All right. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sally.
Yep, that's me.
How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Happy birthday, Sally. It is Sally's birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Exactly.
I was shocked when you said you were okay to do this today.
Yep.
So Sally, happy birthday again. And you are the creative marketing coordinator at Netflix.
Yes.
Can you tell us specifically what your role and responsibilities are? What kind of work do you do at Netflix?
Yes, so basically we are part of the marketing team. What we do is that the creative marketing coordinators or managers, I guess, usually focuses on the Netflix original titles. So what I would do is focus on the Japanese original contents, and we would lead and develop campaign strategy as well as positioning. And other than that, because obviously our name is creative, we do actually create the creative assets used for marketing. So I'll make the trailers, the arts, a lot of the fun stuff, but that also includes shooting. So as you guys may assume, because everything with the coronavirus, a lot of the things have been on hiatus, but things are still moving on. And yeah, that's what I do.
Right. At the same time, I've noticed that Netflix has really been pushing for other kind of, promotional campaigns and services and new ideas. So I look forward to hearing about that from you. Prior to Netflix, where did you work, Sally?
I was at Valentino, the fashion Italian brand.
Yeah.
I was focusing on digital marketing. So that would include all the management of social media channels, as well as just like running ads. And I was only there for like a little over a year. But before that, I was at Line Corp, the text messaging app. And that's where I started focusing on the digital media side, I guess. I was an account manager, so I focused with a lot of our global clients. Surprisingly, not many people spoke English internally. So all the global, mainly American companies were my clients.
Great. Thank you very much, Sally. I look forward to hearing more from you. And I guess similar questions. What are your hobbies, Sally?
My hobbies, eating. I guess the more
it seems like everyone likes eating here because I do too, but what do you like?
Who doesn't? But I actually have an Instagram account that focuses on food. Nothing professional, just out of my hobby. But that's what I've been doing.
What is it called again?
Hungry Nom.
Hungry Nom. Anyone who is interested, let me just, hungry, so N-O-M, right?
Yes, Hungry Nom.
Okay. So that is Sally's Instagram. If you're interested, please follow her. And please follow Frank's 5 a.m. ramen too, because if you do, you get so many delicious looking pictures and content. I drool every time I see Frank's posts. It's pretty, yes. All right, great. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Christian, how are you?
Hi, pretty good. I'm excited.
Great, excited. Me too. So Christian, you are an organizational development manager at Injestar Inc. What does that entail? What does your role entail?
It's quite diverse, but in short, I try to create a work environment that is easy to work in and also helps the employees and managers, and that is all based on science. So if we have home office now, we try to also take care of the employees in a more mental kind of way. Implementing flex time was a big project that we did. Onboarding on some psychological basic factors like relating to other people, social exchange, those kind of principles. That's in brief what I do. And at the same time, also work a little bit on business development, because the company, part of what we do is subtitling and dubbing for movie and TV. Unfortunately, we haven't worked directly with Netflix yet, but maybe one day.
Maybe you can get the connections now today.
Yeah. And on the other hand, we also work with dispatch, like international dispatch services. So if you went to Narita or Haneda airport, hopefully not recently, you probably saw some of our staff working in places like Gucci or like the branded places.
Wow, very cool.
And that's maybe exciting also because now we can't really do that. So we had to change that as well.
Interesting. Okay, I look forward to hearing more about that as well. And you are originally from Germany and you have worked in so many different countries, Christian. But which, can you list some of the countries that you've worked in? US?
Yeah, worked. It depends on if you mean part-time or full. Okay, if it's lived, that's a quite long list. I lived a year in Paris after high school, if we go back that far. But then I lived in London as well, San Francisco, where I finished my studies and worked a little bit for a Japanese gaming company, DNA.
Yeah.
Until they closed down the San Francisco office. So,
oh, really? Okay.
As it happens often in the gaming industry. Yeah, those are some examples. And I spent some time in a company called Sparkdojo as well.
Yes, yes, you have worked with us before as well. All right, great, thank you. And lastly, Christian, what is your hobby?
I have quite a lot. My biggest passion by far is probably movies, so thank you, Netflix.
Yeah, you are a walking IMDb.
Thank you.
What is your movie that you recommend from this year?
This year?
Or last year too?
There actually hasn't been that many releases, I think.
That's true, that's
true.
true.
This year, not so many. I mean, recently what I watched on Netflix that I liked a lot was Unorthodox.
Yes, my favorite too.
Unorthodox. What is it about?
It's based on a true story about a girl in a very, very traditional Orthodox community in New York. And she escapes to Berlin. Which is nice for me to see Germany a little bit again.
Right.
In Germany, I must say, Berlin is portrayed in the best way possible. Berlin, the sun doesn't always shine like this, but yeah, it was still quite nice.
It often is like that in movies. Great. Okay. Well, everyone, Christian and Sally both recommend Unorthodox, so that might be worth checking out on Netflix. And let's get started with our discussion then. So the overall topic of this panel discussion today is, again, innovation in a time of crisis. I think personally, and also our respective companies as well, has had to make rapid changes and transformations in operations and the services that we provide and the products that we offer, and in terms of like internal management of our employees as well. To adapt to a very, very fickle situation that is COVID-19. So let me start off with a pretty broad question, but just to get your insights, initial insights. How has COVID-19 impacted your work and your company and your business? Maybe we can start with anyone? Sally?
Sure. I would say work itself. Am I echoing? I sound like I'm echoing. Is it okay?
Oh, no, it's okay.
I think work itself has transitioned very well. Netflix actually encourages work from home on the regular. So it was something that we've been doing a really long time. But just not where we all were working from home at the same time.
Right.
So tasks and all the meetings were just virtual now, which was normal to us. So I think that was a very smooth transition. What was challenging, I think, is the environment. I think I live in a studio with my boyfriend, and since we both are working from home, it's been kind of difficult when we are on a call together, it's almost hard to avoid each other's voice in each other's meetings.
Right.
Also, we have a dog, and it's been barking like crazy. But I think that's part of the maybe advantages of working from home. I think being able to see your coworkers' personal life over screen is kind of reassuring. Having that glimpse of side where you don't see, usually on a very formal setting, I think has kind of made us closer as a team. So that's what I think.
Great. Do you feel like I guess you feel like you know them a little bit better, because in the past it was just all professional communication.
Yeah, I mean, we see each other's dogs. I see people's like children, nephew, wives, and we just say hello. And it's been a very casual setting. So I think that's been really nice.
Great. And how do you think knowing somebody personally would be give positive impact to your business relationship as well? Do you think it affects the way you work with that person?
Yeah, definitely. I think we are able to be more transparent. And there are things that maybe we wouldn't have discussed or we wouldn't have gave feedback about. But because we are in a more closer setting where we all are vulnerable, I think we're able to be more honest with each other. And that has been a biggest change, I think.
Great, excellent. And, Christian, have you also experienced something similar as you transition to full remote working? Were you able to see, different sides of your employees or your colleagues and coworkers?
I mean, we are not a very big company. We're about 30 full-time employees, and those I'm in touch with. I already know them personally as well. We sometimes go to the movies together or talk after work. So in that respect, it hasn't changed that much, really. Those that I already was connected with, I also stay connected. And sometimes they even remind me to have calls instead of texting, which is very nice.
Do you think you have changed your communication style or your work style due to COVID-19?
If anything, I think I can work better now, because a lot of the time I have to focus with my work. I have long phases of research as part of my work where I need to be alone, and we all have one big office. So if there is a call for anyone, I will hear that call. So I constantly look for little rooms where I can be on my own. And that can be frustrating sometimes. And now that I am on my own, I can really dedicate myself to those things.
Great. And you mentioned the term like home office, but have you set up a home office for yourself?
I also live in a studio, so I can't really choose a different room to set up a proper home office. I do have a work laptop that I had anyway, so I try to also stick to that and not work from the phone, because that would be very distracting in many cases. And psychologically, it's very good to still, if you live in a studio, to create a specific space for work, to signal your brain, if I am in that space, I will start working now.
Absolutely, yeah. I try to create a physical space as well. It's still kind of hard to distinguish, between on time and off time, work time and non-work time, because the space is quite limited, and this is your entire world right now. But separating that physical space is definitely a good step towards, distinguishing.
Setting alarms is also very helpful.
Pardon?
Setting alarms is also
Setting
very
alarms.
helpful.
Okay.
Like when you are supposed to finish work, say 6 or 6:30, you set your alarm for that, and then you accept it as well, and hopefully your team and your manager, that's their responsibility as well, respect that too. I have heard that some companies don't really do that, and that can create really a lot of anxiety and panic working. So that's
panic
very
working.
important.
Right. So that's a keyword that I want to explore a little bit later. Panic working. Right. Okay. Great. And Frank, so we were talking about how a lot of your work was offline. So you were organizing ramen tours, which of course is like you need to go to the physical stores to enjoy the ramen. But with the coronavirus, how has your work and your business changed in terms of your direction of your business or your strategy and so on?
Right. Well, I guess first, maybe on the business side, yeah, it's, we've been hammered. I've been hammered, of course. I mean, in the travel industry, whether it's hotels, tours, whatever it might be, nobody's traveling now. So yeah, it's been, turned upside down in that sense. So, but maybe a little bit later, also getting into some new things to consider in this new world we live in. But as to the personal side of things, not that much has changed for me. I have an office, it's very close to where I live. But at home too, when I am at home, I've always had a space to like work. And I think, both the other two panelists brought up some good points, like setting boundaries, also like, when you're in a confined space with like your partner or whoever, maybe for a long period of time, it brings out, certain situations that weren't there before. So personally, just like both of you, I've had to deal with some things that I didn't have to deal with before. But outside of that, not that much has changed, except I'm not out doing tours. I'm just, at home or at the office. And it's important, I think, as Christian mentioned, to maybe just, be like, all right, I'm switching off now. And maybe that's been my problem. I haven't switched off, but I think, you always, you end up working a lot when you have all this free time. And it's good to really strike a balance, especially when you have a space that is both for work and play.
Do you have any other employees?
I don't.
Okay,
I was going to hire this year, but yeah, not going to happen, of course.
Yeah, probably not the best timing.
No.
Okay. In terms of your communication with, the partner restaurants that you usually form partnerships with, have you been communicating with them a lot? Like, what has been the discussion? What has the discussion been like?
Definitely. I think, in March, there were some tours in the beginning just because, people were still able to travel. And then, of course, that tapered off to 0 tours. And the ramen restaurants, in this case, they're struggling just as much as anyone is in the restaurant industry. So I think, as you mentioned, it's easy to just turn off. But, what I've tried to do is reach out to them and be like, hey, this is what's happening on my side. And I've been focusing, for example, on YouTube more. And I'll be highlighting these ramen shops in YouTube videos, maybe with an angle of, how the coronavirus has impacted the Tokyo ramen industry specifically. Maybe that'll be something interesting that people would want to see. And this is also an opportunity to highlight these ramen shops that have lost a lot of business. So maybe getting creative and making sure that the communication line is still there because, we all hope, I think, that when things do return back to normal, these places will survive. We have to support them. And when that day comes, you still have that open line of communication.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And, that just reminded me of, Sally, you might be more aware of this than I am, but apparently there are like initiatives going on to collect, you can watch content like new movies for free for a certain amount. And most of that amount is going to go to like the movie industry, like the production companies and like the staff and so on. And so there are a lot of like new initiatives that are trying to support, certain industries, especially the hard hit ones like movie theaters and restaurants, for example. Sally, have you heard of this before? Or is Netflix doing something similar?
I think what we are doing is a little bit different because, Netflix is actually thriving. We're doing really well despite our efforts. I don't think it's something we should be celebrating for. We always want to stay humble. I don't know what the actual theaters and cinemas are doing, but we have started a lot of funds to help fund production companies and people related to anything like shooting and like production because everything is on hiatus and that's not their fault. And this is something that's been going on globally. So we have a lot of different funds in each location so that we can pay them as scheduled, as well as continuing the projects that we have had planned with them.
What can you speak about like some of the new initiatives or like campaigns that Netflix is doing?
It's hard to speak on behalf of Netflix. I think some of the things that we're working on are still in production or still working in progress. But if I were to speak on behalf of my individual projects that have already launched, each marketing campaigns usually last a couple months. So some of the things that recently launched started maybe kick off in November or December. And obviously at that time, we could not imagine something like this to happen.
Right.
And especially because the campaign that I was working on was planning on launch around this time, so basically Golden Week time. We've had to pivot many times. We were pivoting January, February, March. We even pivoted our last main decision maybe 2 weeks before the actual launch of the campaign, because we didn't want anyone to feel insulted or that we were taking this time as an opportunistic feel. And I think because we are a global company, we've been lucky to share some of the case studies and things that each country was facing. I know it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of situation, but we've obviously learned from other countries. For example, like Korea had the coronavirus hit before us. So we would share how they were tackling their situation. So I think that has been very helpful. Yeah.
Great. When you were talking about sort of pivoting so many times, well, with this future so uncertain and you don't know really what the correct answer is, how do you make those decisions? Like, what criteria do you use? What are the decision-making points?
Yeah, I think for Netflix, we have a very, very unique culture. And a lot of times we say freedom and responsibility. So each individual, each worker has their own decisions that they can pursue as long as they're comfortable with it. No one's going to say no. Even if they say no, you can continue with it. And that's the type of culture that we really live by. So essentially, there is no criteria. We don't really have rules. But if anything, I think everyone is very transparent. Everyone's very candid. So another wording that we say is highly aligned. So when you have an idea, you align with everybody. You align with all the cross-functional teams, your teammates, your manager, your mentor, and value their opinions. And then essentially after hearing their opinions, you come up with a decision and proceed with it.
Great. So you have the freedom. So there's no rules, no sort of criteria per se, but you have to gain that alignment. You have to gain buy-in. And I guess the freedom and responsibility part is if it does fail, you have to own that failure and make up for it.
Responsibility.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for such insightful glimpse into Netflix and your culture. Christian, so you were mentioning a little bit about panic working, but what is that about?
So panic working, it's basically a manic state of productivity. Now that we work from home, a manic state of productivity. So it's not a good thing. So maybe some people will hear it and say, oh, it's exciting, my people will work more. Not at all. It's not a good thing. It's when there can be a few factors why you get to panic working. One is simple, that when you work with your colleagues, people see you working. Therefore, you get also the feedback, you're acknowledged for working, people see you're there, you stamp your hours, everything is all right. But when you're not there, people don't see you working. So you start to maybe get a bad feeling that, oh, but is my boss thinking I'm working? Is my team working? I'm working. My team thinking that I'm working. So they start to work a lot more, unnecessarily, unjustified more, just to give that feeling, to show that, look at me, I'm still doing my part. And that's not really good, because it's like over revving your car engine. For a short burst of time, maybe it's okay, but on a continuous base, that's how you get depressed. That's how you get a burnout.
Right. Yeah. Compared to pre-COVID, when we would see each other in the office and we can sort of show that, you know, we're working, we're here, we're in work mode right now. I guess when you're working remotely from home, it's difficult to, again, distinguish that on and off time, and also to show like your sort of output. It's not as easy perhaps than like a face-to-face situation. So in that sense, you're saying that, you know, people overly feel to an extreme degree that they need to work and they need to prove that they're working. And so that results in panic working. But what has your organization or you personally been doing to prevent that?
For now, I'm not sure how much. We do have regular check-ins. And one thing we actually did, because, for example, as I mentioned before, at the airports, we can't really employ the people there now. So that's one of actually our biggest departments. And now we actually not dissolved this department, but we made it a lot more flexible in a way that we focused on more short-term projects.
Oh, okay.
We mix it together with other departments. So it's not, we're not trying to think in silos of my department, your department. We're trying to mix people together. So smaller projects where we also get feedback quicker in the results.
Right.
And in those times of unpredictability, I'd say this is a great method, because you can't plan too far ahead in many ways. If you have shorter goals with quicker feedback, it also gives you a new routine and a kind of sense of security. That's one way to do it. Yeah.
All right, great. So to summarize, in this sort of crisis mode, crisis situation, you're setting much more like clearer, actionable, short-term goals that are, you know, a few weeks ahead, maybe even a few days ahead, so that, you know, you can sort of work towards something despite this circumstance of unpredictability. And secondly, I think it was interesting that you mentioned that collaboration increased, you know, cross-functional, cross-department, coordination, cooperation, working together, brainstorming ideas, that increased. And I think that is also something good that is happening due to this crisis. All right, great. And Frank, so now that you are not, your ramen tours have been on hiatus, what new ideas are you working on right now?
Well, I don't know if I have any brilliant new ideas to, you know, change the ramen industry or anything like that. But I think, you know, in times like these, of course, it just, you know, gives us more time to maybe focus on other things. For example, you know, YouTube is something I always wanted to work on. And as I'm sure some people know, like the editing around that, if you've used, for example, Premiere Pro, like it's a long, you know, process. So finally I have this time freed up, and now I can focus on growing YouTube. It's a long journey with YouTube, but, you know, that's one thing. You know, outside of that, I mean, just bouncing ideas around, like, you know, maybe I'm doing instant ramen videos, for example. Is there a way that I could send these instant ramen to people overseas, even though shipping around the world, you know, is a little topsy-turvy right now, but maybe as a long-term goal, I think, you know, merchandise, sending things from Japan abroad, bringing the ramen to you instead of you, you know, coming to enjoy the ramen, things like that. You know, I thought about the idea, for example, of virtual tours, but I think that's a little bit, you know, it's kind of a buzzword now, but I think it's hard to replicate with food tours. You know, I mean, people want to be there. They want to be eating it. I think there's only so much maybe you can do, but that's another area, you know, to perhaps consider.
Yeah, I feel like in this situation, there are never any bad ideas. Like there's no way to assess an idea anymore, because the situation is so fickle and you don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. All you can do is really like go for it and take action and try it. And if it fails, it fails, but it might be a great success too. So that's really interesting, virtual tour idea. When you said that you now have, you know, the time to learn video editing skills, so this was something you wanted to do before COVID, but you just never really had the time to do. It was kind of on your back burner, and now that you have that time, you're taking it up.
Exactly. I did it. Am I echoing?
No.
Okay. I thought I heard something. No, I think, I did a lot of YouTube collaborations, collabs in the past, and, I didn't really use that momentum to like build up my own YouTube channel. I got subscribers, but I never, had the time, just being out on tours to like, sit down and strategize and be like, all right, this is one storyboard for YouTube idea, that kind of thing. It's fun. And I think, now I have the time to be able to do that. So
great. Yeah. I think it's like two types of people, not two types, but two like courses of action people are taking. So the first is exactly what you said. You had a list of things you've always wanted to do, but just the priority level wasn't high enough for you to spend a lot of time on it. And now that you have a lot of time, then you can work on these things one by one. And then another pattern I've seen is people just sort of resetting completely, like forgetting everything that happened in the past and assuming that the world it's a whole new world, feeling like they're reborn and just completely starting from scratch. But in the case of you guys, I guess it's more about like, past things that you've always wanted to do and now you have enough time to do. But Sally or Christian, are you working on anything specifically, like in terms of new skills or new, knowledge, taking courses, self-development?
Christian, do you want to go? Okay. I mean, I know a lot of my friends who have started learning languages on Preply, or started like instruments. I am not starting anything new, but I'm trying to bring back my old hobby of drawing and like painting. But I got myself a new kind of entire kit on Amazon, so that's what I've been doing in my free time.
Great. Are you gonna post these on Instagram as well?
We'll see.
All right, Christian, anything new that you're studying?
New, so thanks to home office, I'm more flexible with my schedule now, and the end of the month I'll be doing an online course from my former university because they allow graduates once a year to take a course for free, more or less. So I'll be taking a data visualization course.
Data visualization, interesting.
It will be in the middle of the night because it will be US time, but office.
But it doesn't really matter if we're always home, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
and
great.
Also, I'll be developing a new course myself with Chris Stair, a familiar face at Sparkdojo, about management, all based on science. Touched upon it from different perspectives like coaching or productivity.
Awesome, that's great. Okay. So it sounds like all of you have been coping very well with, the changing environment, as have I think. I feel like I've been thriving in this environment. Like I don't have to, spend a lot of time on commute anymore. I'm not going from client's office to client's office and spending so many hours just like walking around. So I do feel like I've reclaimed maybe like 3 or 4 hours of a day. But I do also understand that it can be really tough with, the lack of human contact, connections, interactions. Of course, we have Zoom, but it's definitely different from having dinner with someone or, going out for a drink with someone. So in terms of communicating and staying in touch with people, have you guys done anything specifically to make sure that you get that connection with your friends and family and close ones? Maybe Frank, have you kept in touch with people?
Not as much as I should have, but no, every so often, I think, just talking, for example, to my family more regularly, right? I mean, I think situations like this, you really get maybe more concerned for the well-being of, those that are close to you, right? And it's just checking in like, hey, how are you both? If your parents are, of course, when parents are older, being older, like, do you have enough food? What is the situation like over there? Every country is a little bit different. So yeah, it encourages maybe to reach out more to other people. The other day I had my graduating class, we all sat in on a Zoom, nomikai, just having beers. And it was interesting talking about, of course, just like what's been going on. But again, of course, as it does, how the coronavirus impacting, how governments are handling it around the world, right? That came up in conversation. It's interesting. Oh, this is what's happening in Japan, in this particular state in the US, in Jakarta, the health minister said this. So, trying to keep in touch with people, but being informed in the process of that. So being proactive. I'm someone that I'm always talking. My poor wife, probably has to deal with that now more than ever. So for me, somebody, as you mentioned, that really craves that, person-to-person contact, it's definitely been challenging. I think, maybe Zoom, these, calls can help towards that. Just making sure that, we're all in a good place, like mentally, healthy, mental health is very important right now.
Absolutely. Where are your where's your family from, or where are they right now?
So my family's in the Philippines. I'm Filipino, so they're all there. They're in they're not in Manila, which is definitely quite congested. There are concerns there, but they're in a smaller town, which is not as affected. So
are they on lockdown? No.
They are. Yeah, lockdown's been extended till mid-May.
Oh wow! So it's nationwide.
It is, and it's much stricter than here in Japan. You have to have like a permit. If you want to go outside, you have to show the permit to police officers, things like that.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that your parents are doing well and your family as well. But in terms of connecting with them, I also do weekly phone calls with my family too, and we never used to do that. So that's something we always could have. I don't know why we didn't, but we never even thought of it. And Sally, you were talking about how in your company, you guys have internal events on Zoom or online as well.
Yeah, we've had a couple. So as an official, I guess, team event, we've had virtual happy hours. And we would literally just block off our calendars from maybe 5 or 6, which is a pretty nice thing. Usually because all of our meetings are like back to back for the entire day. I've also done like themed dinners with also coworkers. So we'll say like Taco Tuesday, so we'll have to have it prepared.
You like cook together, or is it?
No, we'll either cook or like cook while we're Zooming.
Oh my God! Wow.
and just have casual conversations.
And then you sit down and then just eat together and talk.
And just talk. There's a, you guys might know this, but there's an extension Snap camera where you can put on filters.
On Zoom?
Which is very entertaining. So we'll spend hours just kind of laughing at each other with these filters. Snap camera.
Wow, okay. I am definitely downloading that. Wow. So it seems like you have also just taken initiative and been proactive to, reach out to people and schedule dinners and think of like new ideas.
As well as my friends. I think it's been easier to talk to my friends in other countries. Usually we'd be too busy on Friday nights or Saturday nights, vice versa. But since I went to college in New York, a lot of my friends are in a completely different time zone. And I've been talking to them more than I've graduated school. So that's been a very nice thing too.
That is great. And Christian, you too, your family is okay in Germany?
Yeah, they're pretty fine. They're also not in a very congested area. So it's relatively peaceful there. And Germany is actually opening up all stores now. So they did a relatively good job, I would say, but we'll see if they're not a bit too aggressive now. But otherwise, I catch up with friends. Soon I will talk to a friend whom I haven't talked to in years. Also a good opportunity to catch up with some people now. But something I like to also mention that actually Frank touched upon is that when you have clients and they're also depending on you, it's very good that even if you don't have specific updates, to still regularly keep them updated, that you don't have specific updates, because that also gives them a sense of something that happens regularly, and it's not into the big unknown that they have to wait for you in all vagueness, but they know I just have to wait until next week to get an update. Even if it's no update, it goes a long way for them. So I think what Frank said there was actually a very important point.
Yeah, definitely. And not just for clients, but internal meetings too, right? Even for like my project meetings, even though I know we don't really have specific things that we need to talk about, just coming together and saying, hey, how are you? How is everything? There's a lot of value to that now that we can't really see each other in the office face-to-face anymore. So absolutely, I think even if you don't have any specific agenda, just checking in, saying hi, and making that connection is definitely valuable.
Yep.
I'm wondering what you guys think of, so we're talking about how like the definition of, you know, like time has changed, the definition of working style has changed, especially I think in Japan. It's been pretty amazing to see the radical and dramatic transformation in terms of working style. The government has struggled for so many years to promote and encourage companies to adopt remote working. And suddenly many companies are starting to make that transformation. So I think it's good that there are some positive changes due to this pandemic. But do you think that after this pandemic is over, the vaccine is found, do you feel like everything is just going to return to pre-COVID circumstances? And not just about business, but like, you know, your interactions with your friends. Sally, you said that it's increased a lot, but do you think after the pandemic, it's just going to go back to normal?
I think normal is not normal anymore. It's a new norm. So I think it's something that we're constantly adjusting. So I don't necessarily think it's going to go back to where it was before. But certainly I do think that a lot of very traditional Japanese companies are going to try to go back to where it was before. But since we've all experienced remote working now, I feel like they would be open to kind of these new ideas of working from home or using more like video conferences and be more time efficient.
Absolutely, yeah. I think most companies have had positive experiences with remote working. I think some didn't have the proper infrastructure, maybe didn't have the proper training for the employees, but for those that did, you know, there's not much difference. Actually, as Christian, you mentioned, productivity tends to increase because you have more hours to dedicate to work. But Christian, what do you think about in terms of like HR policies? You see these positive changes somewhat of, you know, encouraging more freer working styles and work styles, encouraging more work from home. But do you feel like this is going to revert back to the original state after COVID-19?
The problem is, I think, in terms of change, I think there are two different ways to look at it. One is physical change, which is the infrastructure that you mentioned, having the capability of working at home, getting rid of the Japanese stamps, the inkan. So that's the physical change, and that's relatively easy to do. But there is also the mental change that we talked about before, things that lead to panic working, micromanagement, not having clear goals. Those problems, if the companies had them before, they won't change that in 1 or 2 months. Netflix, they were basically already ready for that because their work culture is very famous for being so flexible and agile. So for them, it's not that difficult, but companies who use very old leadership styles, and Japan is quite famous for that, I think they will struggle a lot. And I think it will require a lot of proactive behavior from the employees and pressure from them to say, no, I don't want to go back to working 10 hours at the office. I want my right to have home office. And I hope they will enjoy home office so much that they don't want to let it go away anymore. It's actually a great method. If you want to push something new through, let them try it and let them enjoy it. So if you give something to someone, once they own it, they don't want to get rid of it usually. So now people are forced to own home office, and I really hope they don't want to let go of it. But there will be lots of change necessary, and I hope that the companies will not take the easy way to just go back to it as things were and keep the bad systems, but they actually make the push forward to improve on something that already should have been done anyway.
Right, right. Yeah. If anything, I feel like this virus has shown that in order for companies to survive, they do have to be very agile and they do have to have the proper infrastructure to survive any kind of situation and fickle environment. So hopefully this is a good lesson learned, and many companies were able to take this as an experimental process to try different tools, try different new procedures, updating old ways of doing things, and they're learning from this experience, and then also at this moment planning for the post-COVID era and what kind of changes that they want to make. But Frank, in terms of the skills that you're trying to acquire and your development, do you feel like after COVID and you're going to get busy again, you're getting tours booked left and right, do you feel like you're going to stop that self-development aspect?
No, I think if it does stop, that's my fault. I think the worst thing that we can do is have all this momentum. Well, whether it's developing a new skill or creating like good habits now. Like if those disappear, just like a company, if we go back to the way things were before in a not good way, that's on us. So no, I think I need to prepare 100 YouTube videos ready to go for when tours are hopefully, I think, creating backlog, things like this, is very important for when hopefully it does return to normalcy.
Great.
But maybe as Sally mentioned, I think the world will probably not be the same for a little while,
right.
At least the next 3 years. But it's interesting too, as humans, we have short-term memory, right? And, I think we're probably going to make this, big mistake, let's call it again, and hopefully the world is better prepared. That includes like the response, right, of governments to, deal with an outbreak like this, right? And in the same regard, like a company, like, okay, do we have the infrastructure? Sebastian mentioned, to, even have, teleworking, things like that. Oh my God, I said, sorry, Christian. You look very much like a person I know, Sebastian. I apologize. You're both very good looking though, so that's a good thing. If it's very easy for us to go back to, pre-COVID and kind of a romanticizing way, like, oh, the way things were before, but maybe with natural selection, those companies will not survive in the long run. This is a good wake-up call, I think, as you said, for companies, for individuals. We really have to take a good look in the mirror, figure out our priorities, set clear goals, and all of that stuff. So.
Right. And same thing can be said for individuals. Like your value as a professional, you really need to reassess, take this time to reconsider or, do an audit of your existing strengths and weaknesses, the skills that you have, the skills that you might be lacking, and then take this time to maybe plan out your career or your development and try to, hone those skills that you want to develop. Great. Okay, so we are almost at the hour mark and we already have some questions coming in from participants. So I do want to sort of shift to open it up to attendees to ask questions as well. So if you are an attendee, please use the Q&A tool to send in questions, as you already have for some of you. Okay, so Sayuri is asking, I am interested in all of the panelists where they were born and raised, because they are all very diverse. So, Christian, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Bulgaria.
Bulgaria?
Yeah, and I moved to Germany when I was 9 years old and stayed there more or less for 10 years. And since then, around the world.
What city in Germany were you raised?
Stuttgart.
Okay.
Southwest. So Stuttgart, the city is less famous than the brands. So Mercedes, Porsche, that's all actually from Stuttgart and more famous than the city itself.
Frank is laughing and smiling. Okay, Sally, where are you from, or where were you born and raised?
I was born in Tokyo. I'm half Japanese, half Korean. Raised in Tokyo, Singapore, North Carolina, and went to university in Manhattan, New York. And I've been back in Tokyo ever since graduating.
Wow, great. Okay, so very diverse. And Frank, where were you born and raised?
So born and raised in Tokyo, and I went to an international school up until high school, college in the US, then decided to come back after college. And Filipino and American. Right. Filipino and American parents.
Right. Okay, great. All right, so thank you for that question, Sayuri. We have a question from Anonymous. Hi, Sally. I live in Kumamoto Prefecture. You have said that your current hobby is to eat and walk, but you are currently not going outside, so you can't visit restaurants. But what do you eat the most?
Eat the most. That's difficult. I guess right now I mainly cook, so I would say it's mostly Japanese food. But when I can eat out, I would literally eat anything. I love any kind of Asian food. I love like Italian, burgers.
So food.
Food. I love food.
Have your eating habits, any of you changed? You know, like more takeout, less takeout, more cooking, less healthy, more healthy. Have your diets changed?
I think throughout my working from home, I've gone in waves. Initially, it was hard for me to kind of find time to cook or prepare food for anything. So I found myself eating junk or snack the entire day. But I quickly changed my habits and started adjusting by like cooking ahead or easy things like udon and stuff like that. But occasionally, I definitely do takeouts.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah.
Me as well. Recently, yeah, it's been mostly takeout. Great. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say I actually started intermittent fasting.
Oh, can you explain what that is?
So there are a few ways to go. I started because of a TED talk I watched from a neuroscientist, and she talked about how to promote neurogenesis, so how to grow the brain cells. And she said that intermittent fasting is one way to do it. And there are a couple of versions. One version is that you take all your calories within 8 hours of the day and don't eat for 16 hours. So for example, you would eat only between 12 and 6 or 12 or 8 or something like that. Or you only take 600 calories for in 2 days. That's another way of doing it. And I do actually a mix of both now. And I started last weekend. You get used to it. The first day was quite bad. I even had a headache, but now I managed to skip breakfast without any issues really. It's just an experiment. And,
right, and especially because we're not exercising as much, not nearly as much as pre-COVID.
I actually exercise
we should
more.
reevaluate. You're exercising more, you said?
Yeah, because I have a rowing machine at home.
Oh, a rowing machine, like this kind of machine. Wow. Oh my God. All right, so you're getting enough exercise, certainly.
Yeah, I'm definitely healthier than before.
All right. Okay, so we have another question. Have any of you joined or created any new communities to explore something new so that you feel more connected and you are able to network with new people? So have any of you created new communities or newly joined existing communities just to maintain connections or make new connections?
I can. Shall I? Or?
Yes, of course.
I mean, I think you know that I'm also part of Voice Up Japan. I believe you talked to Kazuna. I will talk to Kazuna as well.
Yeah. Can you explain what Voice Up Japan is?
So it's an association in Japan, of course, and they are engaged in raising the awareness for social issues in Japan and also work on improving them. For example, doing online study sessions or starting petitions, things like that. And just a month ago, I started to be a lot more involved with our biggest, not subsidiary, but Shiten, our biggest group, which is the ICU, the university group. And I'm a lot more involved with them now. So they have weekly meetings and I couldn't join them really before. But now also thanks to home office, I'm more flexible. So I join all the weekly meetings that they have. And yeah, that's actually been very rewarding. You do really feel the social connection and the importance of it. when you also connect with people who you don't really know that well. And if you can help each other out, that's even better.
Right, right. Yeah, it is definitely harder to make new connections. I don't think I've met anyone new really in the past 2-3 weeks. Have any of you, or what do you try to do to make new relationships or new connections? If
Well,
any
I'm
of you.
meeting 2 new people now.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so joining events is one way.
I guess this is the only thing I've done to kind of make new connections.
Okay.
If anything, it's been more of kind of rekindling old connections that I've been lacking before everything happened.
Great. Okay. So we have another question. What have you been doing specifically to ensure your mental health? Feel free, anyone, to answer.
Yeah, maybe I'll go. I think getting, on a sunny day, just going outside, even if it's, your veranda or balcony, and, being cooped up inside is not good for, a long period of time, and just, setting little breaks for yourself, right? I mean, if you're in front of a monitor, more than you normally are, right? Your eyes get tired, your brain gets tired. I think exercising, row machine or otherwise, is very important. It's everything's connected, and some things I've been doing. I've also been trying to keep in good shape. I'm eating a lot more instant ramen, and the sodium count is definitely not good. So I think balancing
really
that out.
Like ramen, huh?
I still have my consumption the same level as pre-COVID. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, well, you're doing the things that will make you happy, like eating ramen, and also things that you should do to keep your body and your mind happy, like exercise. Great. Yeah. I think exercise is probably the most common that I hear, but do you guys have any other ways that you're ensuring your mental health?
I think the main challenge for me of working from home was that suddenly my routine was very different. It felt like, I'm sure this applies to like everybody, but basically from when you wake up till you go to bed, you felt like you were working or plugged on. And I think that's just because, home was office now. And I think what has been the best for me was to find a new routine. So instead of going to work, I would wake up, walk my dog, do a little bit of stretch, and then get to my first call. And that is how I basically start my day every day. As well as basically, I think Christian has mentioned this earlier, but blocking time off. So I would block off time, at least an hour for lunch, and make sure that I'm turned off at least by 7 p.m. And having that routine has really helped me be happy, I guess.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think I've realized that I often use my commute time to kind of gradually transition to work mode. And now that I lost that, it's very difficult because I don't have that sort of 15 to 30 minutes of just like, gradually pumping myself up for work. It's more like I wake up and immediately there's my desk and I have to start work. So I've also started like taking walks right before I start working and then right after I stop working, so that it's clear to me, to my mind and to my body that, okay, work is done. You can sort of slowly turn off now. And that has been helpful for me too. Okay, great. So we have another question from Anonymous. In terms of Japanese working culture, do you think the coronavirus circumstances will change positively our working life, even after coronavirus calms down? So I think this is similar to what we were discussing, but is there anything else you guys want to add in terms of coronavirus changing working styles, even after the vaccine is found and everything is calmed down?
I think it's survival of the fittest right now, companies. And if you just spend all this time creating, good, better habits for yourselves as individuals or as companies, and you go back to the way things were before, you've pretty much wasted everything you've done up to now. So those companies, again, might just not be around that long. And I think we'd all like to hope that, whether it's Inkan or some of these longer hours that, this is a good change for Japan. It's been forced upon Japan, but in the long run, this is probably very much a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, like remote working was such a sort of kind of idealistic, like no one really had, or not a lot of people had a clear image of what that looked like, how that would apply to their life. But now that, as you say, it has kind of been forced upon a lot of people, they have that experience and know-how now, and they can better imagine what life can be with full remote or even like a hybrid model of online, offline working. So this experience, I think, if we try to take it positively, has been good for many people to try to experiment different working styles. Great. Any other thoughts in terms of work style?
Work style, I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure about work style, but in the end, I think there will be a payback time if the employers and companies don't really take care of their people. Because now probably people won't look for a new job because they're afraid that they don't want to lose their source of income. But if the companies don't treat them the right way to get through this, I think the employees will remember that. And when it's over and the markets are growing again, then they will reconsider changing jobs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people remember, right? And so the trust in your company that you're working for can be impacted if you're treated poorly during like a crisis like this. So that definitely, I think, plays a role. And I guess though, like not immediately can you really switch careers. Unemployment rate is rising. And I think we did a panel yesterday with people from different countries talking about COVID. And a panelist, David from Israel, was saying the unemployment rate in Israel has risen to 25%. So 1 in 4 people are unemployed at this moment. So in terms of that, I hope that companies don't take advantage of that situation and, treat their employees poorly. But yeah, that is a good point, Christian. Okay. Any other questions for our panelists? Let me ask that question then. So we hear so many sort of dark news every day. Is there anything that you try to do to kind of stay positive? Any sort of certain media or like games or whatever it is to sort of motivate yourself every day or occasionally? Anything specific that you use or do? You guys are innately positive. You don't need tools to stay positive?
Well, I think it comes back to our conversation earlier, but exercising has definitely been a good distraction, I think. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be stepping out of my apartment. So having a dog, having to walk my dog has been a very positive feeling. Initially, before coronavirus, I guess, started, I would only walk in for like maybe 5 minutes. But I would just go around, maybe walk for 30, 40 minutes with it, just so that I can take a breath, kind of distract myself from my worries. So that has been one of the main things I've been doing.
Great, yeah, definitely exercise. It's the endorphins that you get, the adrenaline, I forget which one, but definitely has an impact, I think. Anyone else, anything specific?
Yeah, I mean, a lesson from positive psychology is that one of the greatest generators of delight or happiness is novelty. So trying something new, even if it's just walking a different way, already creates novelty, and that helps a little bit. But
novelty.
Also something that I noticed was that people watch too many bad news as well, and maybe also from the wrong sources. So I would also recommend to watch, if you want to watch that many news, maybe watch it from channels that don't make a spectacle out of what is going on, that are more like objective in their tone, and don't put sad music or exaggerate in their things. And I made it a mission of myself as well to call out on conspiracy theories because that is very damaging. And I had actually a friend or two who were negatively impacted by that. It got them really down, those kind of conspiracy theories. And once you get into it, it's also a bit difficult to get out of it.
Right.
Very irresponsible to have those things. So I hope that everyone who listens to this will also follow and call out on conspiracy theories. We really don't need that now.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to get really negative if you you know, can't distinguish between like fake news or misinformation. So it is very important to be aware that there is a lot of fake information or misinformation out there. People trying to take advantage or, you know, push their own agenda by distributing false information. So definitely, yeah, you do need to be careful with that. Okay, so we have some other questions coming in. Sayuri, what do you want to do after this pandemic is over, both in terms of personally or for work? Personal, professional goals for after the pandemic. Goals or things that you just want to do?
Travel. I would love to travel right now.
Yeah, me too.
And I think it's not going to be like suddenly where coronavirus is gone. We're going to have to live with this for quite a long time. So that would be very difficult to do. But in terms of work, I think since not much has changed for me, I would still like to continue what I'm doing. Perhaps meet a lot of my external partners, do a lot of the shoots that have been on hiatus. So basically kind of resuming where we left off.
Great, excellent. And Frank, I assume you want to start immediately eating all the ramen that you could.
Yes, takeout is fun, but not quite the same, of course. So
yeah, you lose that experience, definitely.
You do. It's about the environment. I think like Sally, I definitely want to travel. I was fortunate enough to have been able to travel in February, right before everything hit.
Oh yeah.
I went to a wedding. It was right before everything. I mean, it was just, you know, slowly spreading. But now, yeah, I think after all of this, all of us want to just liberating, you know, feeling, just jump up and, you know, whether it's, you know, go to a club and party and drink or just, you know, relax on a beach that's not in Japan. So, but yeah, it's of course going to be very different. It's going to be in a safer, you know, way. And yeah, on the business side of things, yeah, you know, I have a blog and getting out, as you said, and eating ramen at the actual ramen shops. So that's my business.
Great. And Anonymous is also asking, is there anything that you or your company is doing to support people who need help, not just your employees, but maybe giving back to the communities, supporting others, not just your clients or your employees? Is there anything specifically that your company is doing? I think Sally kind of touched upon this a little bit, but.
Yes, this is something I've mentioned earlier, but we have a hardship fund going on in different areas of the world. I believe in the US, I'd have to check numbers again, but right now we basically have funded 1.5 million US dollars just within the US. And that is just to basically give what all of our external partners have been promised. And so that no one is out of jobs or going through unemployment. So that's something that we've been doing. And since that has also been reflected upon other areas of the world, I think that's the main thing that we've been focusing on.
Right. And I guess Netflix is also, I guess you said across the world, but, you know, probably to different degrees, depending on how hard hit that country is.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Anyone else? Anything specifically?
Well, maybe, you know, maybe we as individuals, I mean, just simply, we can make sure that we're, again, just reaching out to our friends and family, making sure they're okay. I mean, there's,
Absolutely.
You know, supporting your local restaurant that you love, you know, that one takeout order, you know, all of those add up, right? And it perhaps allows them to survive. So, you know, maybe if you haven't specifically set up like, you know, a community or a grant or fund or anything like that, just think about what you can do as an individual to make sure these businesses stay afloat.
Definitely. And I saw in my apartment complex, somebody just randomly put up a flyer of all of the restaurants in our neighborhood who are doing takeout. And I'm certain that this person isn't really involved in the restaurant industry or anything. He or she is just trying to be supportive of the local businesses and restaurants. So there is something we can do as well, not just companies and organizations, but we can do to support those around us. And Christian, I know this isn't your company per se, but you as a global professional have been like releasing videos on home working, home office, and so on, right?
Yeah. So I did one about how to lead in times of home office. So that's why I mentioned things like panic working, to spread the word a little bit about that. I also always try to talk about more physical distancing than social distancing, because in the end, we don't want to really have a social distance, but just a physical distance. I think that's a nice framing. And also at Voice Up Japan, we signed a petition that was for supporting also the live venues here in Tokyo, because actually some of those are very supportive and helpful to the LGBTQ plus community, or also women who are alone or in trouble. So that's another way also to help community with petitions.
Absolutely, yeah. So we don't just have to depend on our companies to do it. We can also take the initiative to offer support. Okay, Anonymous has sent in, what recently developed habits or routines would you personally carry over, even if the lockdown is lifted? What habits or routines would you carry over that you're very certain that you're gonna keep on doing and it's now permanent?
I don't know if I can be certain, but I would like to continue my YouTube workouts.
Oh, okay. So you're watching.
There's been a lot of, I guess, fitness accounts that have been posting quick workouts that I could do even in between meetings. So hopefully I can continue doing all of those, even after the lockdown is lifted.
Great. Do you have any recommended ones?
I feel like a lot of people are aware of her, but Pamela.
I have no idea. Pamela.
I've tried many different accounts, but I think she's from Germany.
Okay.
But her
Pamela from Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, great. On YouTube, right?
Yes.
Okay, so people, if you're interested in Sally's recommended fitness programs, it's Pamela from Germany on YouTube. All right, Frank, were you going to say something?
No, it wasn't that profound, I think. No, I was just going to say, I think it wasn't as profound as what Sally. No, I think, maybe just, it's not so much a habit as it is just like appreciating the little things, right? Like, it's situations like these, again, that really make you think, wow, like life is precious, like things can change in an instant. So, treating others well, all of those things we talked about, just making sure that we don't forget about, these maybe positive behavioral changes, right? So things can change just like that. So
definitely. What do you appreciate the most? What have you realized that you appreciate the most?
I guess it's just the little things, we're not able to do things we were able to do before, and it's you take those things for granted, right? And yeah, whether, just simple things, going out and being able to, get on the train and not have a concern about, your health or safety. And, this is even before like overseas travel. So, and also it puts things in perspective, right? There are people around the world that don't have a roof over their heads like, us right now, right? We are all inside, we're quite privileged that we have a place to conduct this, panel discussion to begin with. So, and maybe on top of that, as everyone mentioned, if there's some way that we can help those less fortunate, that's an even better step, right? Because, for some people, it's not about, social distancing. Oh, we don't want to be at home. For some people, they don't even have that choice. So it really puts things in perspective, I think.
Definitely, yes. Okay, and Ken is asking, what kind of skills do you think we will need after the coronavirus and for the next 10 to 20 years? What kind of specific skills? It's a pretty long timeline, but I hear you, Ken. What should we work on? What skills should we prioritize in terms of acquiring?
I've personally, if I may, just always been a big, champion of like communication skills, right? Like, I mean, it's something that's never going to disappear, right? Whether it's like in person or like, in a forum like this right now. And I think, whether you're watching a YouTube channel like Charisma on Command, how to speak to certain types of people, or just, practicing public speaking. Now, of course, that's challenging to do in front of a big group of people, but I think, communication is never going to disappear. And, whether it's 10 or 20 years, like how you communicate with others will remain strong. So if you feel like you can be a better communicator, perhaps continue to work on that.
Definitely. Yeah. As you say, it's always going to be there. The medium might change. Maybe it'll be like all digital communication, but we're never going to not, exchange thoughts and ideas with other human beings. So that would definitely be, I think, a skill that I would recommend as well. Anyone else? Any kind of skills?
Well, I'm betting hard on including psychology into organizations to take care of your people. One keyword would be psychological safety. For example, that's the groundwork for having good collaborations, for fostering creativity. Without that, you can't really have an inclusive workforce. So how to foster psychological safety, how to make people feel comfortable and not to be afraid to speak up in the company. As Frank said, definitely communication, how to be flexible in changing environments, how to have a growth mindset. That's maybe another point as well from psychology, not thinking in fixed terms, but always trying to outgrow yourself. I think those are very important points.
Do you have any recommended resources to sort of develop these skills, like the growth mindset or, problem-solving skills?
Well, growth mindset, there is, I think, one TED talk or even an article that the concept on its own is not very difficult. It's just more difficult, of course, to actually do that. That's a bigger challenge. In terms of psychological safety, I think the person who invented it, defined it, is Amy something. If you type in psychological safety, you'll definitely find it. And she has a book about it as well. Then something very influential for me was Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yeah, that's a good book.
Daniel Kahneman. That exposes a lot of issues that are in organizations. Then Airily, I'm not sure how to write it. Let me. He's a very famous psychologist as well.
Great. So, do your own research is essentially it. Don't be handed books. Don't be handed, this is what you should work on. Find it on your own. And it probably depends on the person too, what skills are necessary for that industry and so on. But as we all said, communication is probably going to be a standard sort of skill that you'll continue to need the next 10 years, 20 years. Okay, maybe this is the last question. Thank everyone for submitting your questions. Do you think it is unethical or irresponsible to go out, for example, to eat at a ramen shop that is still operating, or use Airbnb to get out of the city over the weekend during the lockdown? This is under the assumption that these businesses are operating because they need to stay open to survive. But do you think it is unethical or irresponsible? I guess both ends for the businesses to continue operations in this sort of national emergency, and the customers who do visit these businesses and use their services.
Very good question. And one that's, I guess, not so simply answered. I think, no country has maybe responded in the perfect way to this, whole situation, but it's like, do you put the economy first or, people's lives? And it shouldn't be one or the other, right? But I think we as individuals, we probably should limit the amount of time, we do go out. If we do go out, it's just to buy the necessities, Of course, is takeout ramen a necessity is, maybe another, question. But I think, if you are sick, maybe even before that, if you're sick, you shouldn't be out, right? And, and when you do go out, wear masks and things, you know, people around the world are questioning, you know, oh, like my liberties are being, you know, trampled on and so forth. But, you know, we as people have to stick together to make sure we get over this, and we can all do our part. I was going to bring up a much better point, but I lost it. So never mind. Maybe I'll pass the baton to Sally or Christian. Totally lost it.
Well, that was a great point. That was a great point.
I agree to Frank's point, though. I think every situation is very different in terms of each businesses and each countries. So it's hard to say yes or no to this. And I also feel like every opinion should be valued. So regardless of someone thinking it's unethical or irresponsible, the person who is acting towards it might not think the same way. So I feel like those opinions should be valued regardless. I think it's more so of the consumer's side that should be, I think, judged. Each individual should be responsible or fairly responsible in what they're doing, and be aware of the possible outcomes that could are expected for their activities. So I think it's a hard question.
Definitely, yeah. Oh, sorry, Christian, were you going to say something?
Just very quick, that I think in those times, again, depending on where you are and how open the countries are now, if it's something that you don't really have to do, then probably you shouldn't do it now. That's how I would form it. Just if you're too tired at home or sick of ordering in, I don't think that would be reason enough to go out and have a good time at the restaurant now. So if you can restrict it, then I think you have the obligation to restrict it. Now, if it goes so far that it damages yourself, that would be a different issue, I think. But in many cases, I think people are pondering too much on their individuality. And I think in the US now, individualism is a very big thing that has caused a lot of troubles, in my opinion.
A lot of protests across the US, people going out in droves. Do you guys follow, or are you aware fully of the government guidelines for this national state of emergency? Like, how did you make the decision to stay inside almost 100%?
I think being aware of friends from other countries and other areas have really helped. I think the Japanese government, this is just my personal opinion, but the Japanese government wasn't as transparent as they should have been in the initial stages, perhaps probably because of the Olympics. But being aware of global media, global news, and I guess it's now difficult because obviously there are many fake newses and conspiracy theories, but just being aware and educating yourself, I think, has been the best solution for me, at least.
Yeah, like I was thinking about it, and because exactly as you say, Sally, you know, my friends in the US are on complete lockdown. My family is from New Jersey, and New Jersey is one of the high-risk states, so they haven't been outside for a while. So when you speak with people like that, when you have that information, that secondary information, I think it was an easy decision for me to say, okay, I'm not going to go outside anymore. 100% self-imposed lockdown. But for many, I think, Japanese people, they don't have that access to, you know, outside of Japan information, not as detailed and not as like personal experience based as maybe we would. So how do you think Japanese people should make that decision, especially with the government not being able to enforce an actual lockdown? What sort of information should they look at? How should they make this decision on their own, do you think?
I think Christian summed it up nicely. It's like, if it's, you know, what is necessary, right? If you want to go out and have a picnic because the weather is nice, you know, and you're not wearing a mask, that's probably not good behavior. But if you're just going out to pick up food and bringing it back immediately, you know, if you, again, if you have to question it, like, you know, within that first 10 seconds, it's probably not the right action, right? I think, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And if I may, perhaps on the other side, you know, there's a lot of people that are shaming others, you know, for not doing certain things, right? Of course, like, I think you should wear a mask, you know, practice good social distancing and things, but this virus situation is unfortunately bringing out the worst in some people as well, right? And it's not good either to be like, oh my God, you know, you're killing people because you went out, and this, you know, people are really in a hateful way calling out others for leaving their house. You know, even if they shouldn't be doing that, it's also wrong for you to, you know, respond in that manner as well. So
Right.
it goes both ways. We just have to be good people and good communicators, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, it's you would hope that you know, people can make rational choices, you know, gain access to information that they need, assess the quality of the information, and then make a very informed decision. I think that maybe that information pipeline, though, might be a little bit sort of not as clear in Japan's case, especially from the government to the people. So we as citizens, I suppose, have the responsibility to seek out the correct information and the facts and make informed decisions about our actions and what to do. All right, great. Thank you very much, you guys. That was very quick, an hour and a half. Thank you all for joining, and thank you all for the attendees as well for excellent questions and your engagement and your attention throughout the 90 minutes. I hope it was interesting for you, because it was certainly intriguing for me to hear about Frank, Sally, Christian's thoughts and their personal experiences and, you know, situations in terms of work as well. Frank, Sally, Christian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Sally, happy birthday. Go celebrate.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, don't celebrate.
Celebrate responsibly.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. And hopefully we can do more future events and webinars, and maybe you guys will be available to join. Thank you again, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. So I will be ending the webinar now. Bye.